This is Pokemon Infinite Fusion, the fan game with over 220,000 different Pokemon combinations. And we are here today to see if we can beat hardcore Nuzlocke using only Steel-type fusions. That means if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead. The level cap is the next leader's ace, no active items can be used in battle, and we're going to be playing on set mode. If you liked the video and you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the channel. Over 100,000 people check out my videos every month, and we are nowhere near that many number of subscribers, so come on, hit the button, please, I'm begging you. Also, if you could leave a thumbs up and maybe a comment, that also really helps out with the algorithm. As always, when I do these monotype runs, we're going to be starting with the base form of each Steel-type Pokemon that is in Infinite Fusion, just so that way we can get a bigger variety of fusions, and maybe some stuff you normally wouldn't see in your games. We're going to go ahead and choose Charmander as our initial Pokemon. As our first fusion pair, we're going to go ahead and fuse Honedge with Charmander, and the result is absolutely adorable. I love Honmander. Before heading out on our journey, it's time for us to face off against Rando and his Squirtsaur. Don't worry, he won't have it for long. After setting up a Swords Dance, we can go for a tackle doing some pretty decent damage, and a second one takes it out, defeating Rando. Now it's time for us to grab some new friends before we face off against Brock, and first, we're going to get a Bedrill. Over on 22, we grab Mime Jr. On 2, we grab a Fleshling. In Viridian Forest, we grab a Shroomish. Over in the Secret Garden, we grab our Rockruff Egg, as well as an Eevee. And for our final encounter before facing off against Brock, we grab a Swile. Now before facing off against Brock, we need to fill out our team. First up is going to be Mime Jr. with Klefki to get this adorable little Keyblade wielder. And finally, we're going to fuse a Fletchling with Skarmory to get this cute little Scarling. And I love his hat. Alright, now it's time for space off with Brock and a Steel Pokemon. He started with Arduck and we send in Starscream. Going for a Metal Claw, we do basically nothing as a Water Gun comes in doing just a little bit to us. And what's essentially going to happen here is we're just going to keep on going back and forth for a long time. Until eventually, we can take the duck down. Once T Jr. comes in, we're going to go ahead and swap out, sending in Ember Blade. After taking a Gyro Ball, we go for an Ember, doing a decent amount of damage. After he heals up with his berry, we do manage to get the burn off, which is pretty nice, but then Brock goes ahead using his full heal. And we manage to get the burn off on the following turn, which puts him low enough for just one more Ember to take him down, defeating Brock. Outside of Mount Moon, we find Nurse Joy tending to this wounded Geodude. I pull up some schematics showing how many awesome steel fusions we could give Geodude in order to repair his arms, its body, and make it even better than ever. And then out of nowhere, Brock comes in with his own ideas, and the two of us begin debating on which would be the better procedure for the Geodude. And Nurse Joy, completely uninterested in this conversation, leaves. But we don't need her. We have science. In Mount Moon, we're going to grab ourselves a Cleffa, and then head back inside to grab our Magikarp. While fighting our way through Mount Moon, Ember Blade's going to go ahead and evolve into the absolutely awesome Honmillion. Starscream's also going to go ahead and evolve up into its next form of Scarinder. Next up is going to be Sora, and once he evolves, he's going to get access to a whole bunch of more swords with Clefmime. And finally, with the level cap increase, we're going to go ahead and fuse up Azumarill with Shieldon and check out Azumarill. After fighting our way to the back of Mount Moon, we run into Team Rocket, who's attempting some sort of triple fusion, which must be evil because it's Team Rocket. But after the triple fusion machine fails and explodes, it turns the 3 rocket starters into a Grimer? Is that how Grimers are made? Oh god. This is even worse than Ditto. Over on Route 4, we're going to grab a shell as a Sunkern, and then our Bulbasaur over in the Cerulean City Pokemon Center. Before facing off against Rando over on Nugget Bridge, we're going to go up and fuse Lucario with Umbreon to get ourselves Umgario. We run into Rando over by Nugget Bridge where he's flying a kite. He seems to be having a great time, but drones are so much cooler than kites. After I accidentally tangle my drone up in his kite, taking them both down into the Cerulean Bay, he gets angry, challenging us to a Pokemon battle. After setting up a Swords Dance and taking a decent shot from a Spark, we fire back with a Fire Fang, grabbing the Oko. Solvi's in next, and a Pursuit does some pretty massive damage, and after taking some damage from a Psywave, we can then finish it off on the following turn. His next 2 Pokemon, both Ninjard and Feebas, don't really stand much of a chance either, and while Rando does get the opportunity to heal up the Ninjard, both of them ultimately go down quickly, and we defeat Rando, proving that science is superior. Over on Route 24, we're going to grab ourselves a Solith. We run into Bill over in his lab where he's experimenting on himself and a Rhydon, and that's when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they fuse together. That wasn't the intention. Bill asks us to help him defuse the situation, and of course we agree, because we're swell guys. When we ask him what happened to the Rhydon, he offers us some cruise tickets to buy our silence, and while I know it's not ethical, I do love boats. Alright, now it's time for us to take on Misty and her ice Pokemon. She starts off by sending in a bunny, and we're going to send in Aura. It starts off going for a Fake Out, which is going to activate our Steadfast. And then after going for one Swords Dance, we're going to go for a Power Up Punch, absolutely annihilating this thing, raising up our attack even further. When our Ace Manoras comes in, one Power Up Punch gets it down super low, activating his Berry. And after smacking ourselves super low, we're going to go ahead and swap out, sending in Aegis. After Aegis also gets confused and punches himself in the face, and Icy Wind's can do a little bit of damage to us, lowering our speed even more, but this does knock us out of our confusion, so we can go ahead and grab the KO, defeating Misty. While heading towards Vermilion City, we're going to go ahead and grab our Togepi Egg. Then over on Route 5, we grab a Ralts. On 6, we're going to grab ourselves a Smeargle. On 11, we grab a Pichu. And a Diglett where you can guess where. Wanting to fill out the last spot on our team, we're going to go ahead and fuse up Cleffa with Magnemite. You get this adorable little Magnifa, who's then going to go ahead and evolve right away from Magnifa into a Magnafairy. And then one more time after giving it a Moonstone, into a Magnafable. While over on the SSM, we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves a Claw Fossil. Over on the SSM, we run into Rando again, who's still furious about the kite accident. I'm sorry, Rando. I was trying to make it better. I wasn't trying to ruin your fun. But the battle begins anyways. Rando starts off by sending in his Cottonuxio, and we're going to send an Ember Blade. Going for a Fire Fang, we're going to grab ourselves the Oko as he sends in Niniard. Once we get Niniard down to its sash, he goes for a Rock Tomb on us, doing some decent damage. Then after Rando heals up with a Super Potion, we can take him down. When his Solar V comes in, we go for a Shadow Sneak, but he avoids it because he's a normal type, you dum-dum, so we follow up with a Fire Fang, activating his Citrus Berry. A Swift comes in doing a surprising amount of damage, even though it's resisted. So we're going to swap out and send in Aura. Another Swift comes in doing a little bit of damage to us as we follow up with a Feint Attack, grabbing the KO. Finally, once this Slugbass comes in, we go for another Feint Attack, taking it down, defeating Rando. And now it's going to be time for us to take on Lieutenant Surge and his fighting Pokemon. He starts off with Noseky, and we send in Starchild. Going for a Draining Kiss, we can get him down super low as he goes for a Seismic Toss on us, doing what Seismic Toss does. Once Surge uses the Super Potion to heal up, another Draining Kiss is going to get him down pretty low again so we can heal up. Surge then uses his second Super Potion, which is then going to allow us to go for the KO. He sends in his Houndlade next, going for a Bite, doing a decent amount of damage to us, and we can get him way down into the red, activating his Berry. For some reason, he goes for a Bulk Up on the following turn, which goes for a free KO for us. When Coughloon comes in as his final Pokemon, a Mach Punch does some decent damage to us, and we do about 50% with a Draining Kiss. Then following up with another one, we can grab the KO, defeating Surge. Over on Route 9, we run into a Luxio. Over on Route 10, we're going to grab a Mareep. Then in Rock Tunnel, we're going to grab ourselves a Litwick. Then we also grab our Noibat Egg. While fighting our way through Rock Tunnel, Aegis is going to go ahead and evolve into the absolutely monstrous Azumarill. Next up, Starchild's going to go ahead and evolve as well, transforming into a Magnafable. And then one more time, once we give it a Magnastone, evolving into a Magnafable. We're then going to go ahead and reverse the fusion because apparently I did the wrong one, and we're going to transform into a Clefzone. And check this sprite out. We catch up with Rando again over in Pokemon Tower where he's mourning the loss of his kite, which seems really weird, and that's when I realize that it wasn't a kite that I accidentally killed. It was a Stunfisk Drifloon fusion. I'm so sorry, Rando. Rando starts off by sending in his Whimsiccio, and we're going to send an Ember Blade. Going for a Giga Drain on the first turn, he basically does nothing to us as we set up a Swords Dance. He's then going to go ahead and Volt Switch out, doing some absolutely massive damage to us, activating our Berry as Axagon comes in. And thankfully with a crit, it's still enough for the Oko. Litzel comes in next as we go for a Shadow Sneak, grabbing the KO. Slugbass comes in, and once again, one and done. Which is going to lead into his Duo V, who's still a normal type, you dum-dum. After getting slammed down to just 17 HP, we're going to swap out into Aura as a Shadow Ball comes in, doing basically nothing to us. Then going for a Feint Attack, we can grab ourselves the Oko. This is going to lead into his Ninjard. And after going for a power-up punch, we do about a third, increasing our attack as he U-turns out, sending in Swimzixio again. From here, we're going to go for a feint attack, getting it way down to the red as a Giga Drain comes in, doing a little bit to us. Rando then heals up as we go for another power-up punch, and then follow up with a feint attack for the KO. Finally, his Ninjard comes back in just for us to feint attack it, KO it, and defeat Rando yet again. After the battle ends, we hear a commotion on the other side of the room where we see Mr. Fuji, the renowned scientist who created the Master Ball, being abducted by Team Rocket. Oh my god, Rando, we have to save them! Quickly, Rando, we must away! On Route 8, we're going to grab ourselves a Growlithe, and then a Snubbull over on 7. Next up, we're going to grab a Dratini over in the game corner, a Slugzoo over on 16, and then finally our Eevee over in the condos. While fighting our way through the rocket base, Emberblade's going to go ahead and start evolving a few times. First into a Dowmelion, which I'm surprised doesn't have a custom sprite. Next up, Starscream's going to go ahead and evolve as well, transforming into its final form of Scarflame. After fighting our way to the back of the rocket base, we're going to run into Giovanni, who's being wildly inappropriate with Erica. How dare you? You were like twice her age, my guy. I think. I don't know how old Erica is. Guys, I don't know how old Giovanni is either. Huh. Anywho, Giovanni starts off by sending in Haunching, and we're going to send an Aura. We're going to go for a Swords Dance. The Drill Peck comes in, doing a little bit to us. A Power-Up Punch does basically nothing, but it does increase our attack again. And now that we're at plus God knows what, we slap ourselves in the face for an insane amount of damage, and we need to swap now. So we do, sending in Aegis. The Haunching fires back with a Drill Peck, doing some chip damage to us, while we fire back with an Aqua Tail, doing some huge damage. And after a second one, we get him down way into the red. This is going to prompt Giovanni to use his first Max Potion, so we can go for another Play Rough, doing even less than we did with our Aqua Tails. And this thing is just going to keep on Drill Pecking us as we continue to go for Aqua Tails until we get swaggered. After we smack ourselves in the face twice, we're going to swap out, and we're going to send in Starchild. Fortunately for me, I can tank all this thing's attacks pretty well as we start setting a bunch of minimizes and then going for Flash Cannon. And after just a couple of attacks, we can take down Giovanni's Pokemon. Next up comes his Ketgon. Next up is Kepgong. Next up is Kekong, and a Sucker Punch slams us down to just 31 HP, activating our Berry. Going for a Flash Cannon, we do some decent damage as he pivots into using a Rock Slide, which means our next Flash Cannon is going to be super effective, and we can take it down. Up next is Smeargar, and we manage to score a crit, Okoing with a Flash Cannon. His final Pokemon, Disdain, comes in. And after we get hit down way into the red, we're going to swap out, sending in Emberblade as he goes for another Flamethrower. After missing our Fire Fang and getting knocked down super low, we can follow up, connecting, defeating Giovanni. Before facing off against Erica, we're going to go ahead and evolve Emberblade into his next form, which is super cool. Look at Dobzard. And now it's time for us to take on Erica and her bug Pokemon. Galvanium comes first up against our Emberblade. Galvanium goes for a cross shot, doing some decent damage to us, but we can fire back with a Flamethrower, grabbing the Oko. And when Volcanics comes in, I forget that I'm flying now and not fire, as a Fiery Dance slams us down, KOing our first Pokemon of the run. Setting in Aegis, the Volcanic sets up a Quiver Dance, and we can go for an Aqua Tail doing massive damage, activating her Berry. And after taking a decent amount of damage from a Bug Buzz, we can quickly grab the KO. But unfortunately, now we're burnt. So when Roaster comes in, we swap out, sending in Starscream. After firing off a bunch of Embers and Pecks, eventually we can take down the Roaster, defeating Erica and earning our Rainbow Badge. Over in Pokemon Tower, we're going to grab ourselves a Mischievous. On our way over to Future City, we're going to go ahead and play our flute for this Sleepy Bear. Needing to fill the spot up on our team, we're going to go ahead and fuse Aaron up with Growlithe to get ourselves Arlith. Then it's going to evolve a bunch of times. First up, into a Larith. And then finally, one more time, into the absolutely awesome Agnine. Our next challenge is going to be up against Koga and his Dark Pokemon. He starts off by setting in Weirion, but we've played this mode enough times to know that it's a dirty Zoric trick. So when we go for a Play Rough, we can knock him down way into the red, as Koga then heals up on the following turn. And after Koga uses his next Hyper Potion, we can almost take down the Weirion before a Crypt Dark Pulse KOs Aegis. What is going on with these fights? Sending in Starchild, we go for a couple of minimizes, so that way we can hopefully cheese this thing. And why am I not dodging more? But we can take it down. Next up is Abtop, and he misses his first attack, as a Draining Kiss can do some good damage, getting us back up to full. On the following turn, he manages to connect, doing about 50% to us, and then we can take him down, healing back up. When Hodgefire comes in, I want to know why this thing isn't missing more against us. But after just a couple of rounds and smooches, we can take it down. His final Pokemon, the real Weirion, comes in and it protects our first turn and then hazes away our stat changes. So after we give it a big smooch, we're going to swap out, sending in Agnine. As it alternates between protects and hazes, we can eventually connect with a bunch of Iron Heads, taking down the Weirion and earning our Soul Badge. I also don't know what he was hazing away at this point. Before heading into Silph, we're going to go and pick up our Squirtle from our sister. Then after evolving into a Blastoise and fusing it up with Probopass, we're going to get ourselves Blast Pass. After saving everybody in Silph, we get ourselves our Lapras. We run into Rando over in Silph, who's here looking for an internship. He says he wants to be as good of an engineer as we are, and I think that his interest in science is great, but Team Rocket's here, so we need to deal with them first. Rando agrees, and we burst into the president's office together. And we challenge Giovanni to a double battle. If we win, they leave. If he wins, we would please still like them to leave. We're looking for an internship, and I think if we save everybody, they'll definitely give us the spots. The double battle begins, and he sends out his Haunchling and his Age of Menace. Whimsray Volt switches out, hitting the Haunchling for a decent amount of damage, sending in Lampsil as we go for a Fire Fang, bringing down the Age of Maggies down to its red. On the following turn, Geo goes ahead and heals up, as Lampsil throws his Flame Orb at it, and we hit it way down into the red. On the next turn, Lampsil connects with a Fire Blast, taking down the bad boy. And a Sludge Bomb brings the Lampsil super low, and we miss our Rock Slide. The Lampsil goes for an Ice Beam, doing some great damage to Haunchling, but unfortunately, Ketgon uses Earthquake, wiping out our side of the field. We send in our Starscream, and Magtic comes in on Rando's side. Needing to cut this thing's attack down, it hits us both pretty hard with the Rock Slide, and we manage to get the burn off, before Magtic eventually goes down. Assuming it's going to go for another Rock Slide, which it does, we get hit activating our Berry, and we can hit it with a Steel Wing, bringing it down below half. Fraxalon then gets knocked way down into the red as he sets up a Dragon Dance. Ketgon goes for another Rock Slide, destroying the Fraxalgon, and we somehow manage to dodge it and take down the Ketgon. Planning on essentially doing the same thing, we're going to burn the Donzor, as Niar gets a decent hit on the Haunchling. Niar can baton pass a speed boost into Vaporeon, and we go for Steel Wing on the Donzing, doing basically nothing. Vaporeon goes for a Shadow Ball, bringing Haunchling down just barely. Not in the red, as an Earthquake comes in, doing a decent amount of damage to Vaporeon. On the following turn, the Hyper Voice almost takes down both of his Pokemon before Vaporeon goes down, and a Fly finishes off Haunchling. Once Rimsroy comes back in, he can use a Giga Drain on the Donzor, grabbing the KO, defeating Giovanni. And I can't believe we lost our third Pokemon. For savoring everybody in Silph, we're going to grab ourselves a Cyndaquil because I think we're going to need some more firepower. And now it's time for us to take on Sabrina and her fairy Pokemon. She starts off by sending in Togetails, and we're going to send in Schnoz. After hitting us with an Air Slash, we're going to go for a Surf, taking it just below half, as a Flamethrower manages to get the burn, which is super unfortunate, but a second Surf takes down the Togetails. Up next comes Miracle, and a Boomerang comes in and absolutely annihilates Schnoz. That is terrible. I'm losing so many good Pokemon. Anywho, we send in Starchild as another Boomerang, knocks me down to just 1 HP, and then she goes down as well. This time when we send in Sora, she goes for an Earthquake OHKOing Sora. This is an absolute decimation of my team. Not knowing why I didn't do this in the first place, we send in Starscream, going for the burn on the Marikyu. From here, it can't hit us with any of its hard-hitting moves, so after we take a couple of rounds of damage and heal up, we can eventually take it down after Sabrina uses both of her potions. And this thing has never given me this much trouble before, but with it down, we should have an easier time with the rest of our Pokemon. When Silvar comes in, we can go for a Steel Wing, doing some great damage, and that's when Sabrina swaps out and sends in Clefix instead. A Steel Wing still does about 30%, and then on the following turn, we're going to burn it so we can start spamming Roost to keep ourselves topped off. The Clefix is just going to keep on using Seismic Toss as we continue to just use Roost. And once this thing tries to use Wish, I manage to grab the KO with a Steel Wing, and then one more takes care of Silvar, and we defeat Sabrina, but at such a huge cost to the team. Needing to completely reforge our team, we're going to start off with Haxorus and Metagross to get ourselves Metaxorus. And take a look at this awesome custom sprite. Next, we're going to fuse a Mismagius with Kling Clang, and the result is this adorable little Clockwork Magician. And check out these secondary sprites. They are absolutely awesome. Next up is going to be B-Sharp with Gyarados, and the result is this absolutely amazing fusion. Welcome to the team, Gyarasharp. And then for our final team member, it's going to be Empoleon and Ampharos for this absolutely adorable Amphileon. Alrighty, now it's time for us to take on Blaine and his Psychic Pokemon. He's going to start things off by setting in this Haunted Ball Pit, and we're going to send in Charizard. After setting up a Gear Shift, we're going to go ahead and do the same, setting up a Dragon Dance. Mr. Klein then goes for a Gear Grind, which does basically nothing as we set up a second Dragon Dance. And he liked it so much he wants us to keep on dancing, and we will happily oblige, getting up to +4 before taking his Zen Headbutt, and then +5. And now that we're maxed out, we can just start sweeping through this entire team. First, Mr. Klein goes down. Then Zykin. When his Ace Galchomp comes in, it stands absolutely no chance getting OHKO'd as well. And when Octotor comes in, it goes for a Protect. That way it can stay up for just one turn, activating its Moody, increasing its speed. But in the end, it manages to stay up because of its Focus Sash, slamming us with a Seed Bomb. And after getting healed up with a Full Restore, there we go. That's more like it. Blaine defeated. Before heading over to Mount Ember, we're going to go and fuse a Fortress with Snorlax to make one heck of a landmine. After fighting our way through Mount Ember, because we hear it's nice this time of year, we run into Giovanni and a bunch of Rocket Grunts, and it turns out that not only has Giovanni managed to capture all 3 Kanto legendary birds, but he's managed to fuse them into some sort of super bird. I think I'll call it Super Bird. He calls it Zabukuno, but I think that's a stupid name. With the Super Bird, Giovanni plans on taking over the entirety of the Kanto region, but there's one thing he didn't count on, and that's my Bug Bomb. Sending in Bug Boom, we go for a max EV trained, normal gem boosted stab explosion. Which absolutely decimates the bird, OHKOing it. Thank you for your sacrifice, my friend. And now the time has come for us to take on Giovanni and his normal Pokemon. He starts off with Disdain, and we're going to send in Starscream. After the Starscream imposters into us, we can then swap out and send in Tinker. The Disdain goes to use Fly, and after it does a little bit of damage to us, we fire off a Mystical Fire, lowering its special attack. Giovanni then uses this first Full Restore as we go for another Mystical Fire. Disdain then goes for another Fly, doing some decent damage to us, getting us to about half, and we can KO it with a Power Gem. Up next is Snorking. Assuming it's going to use an Earth Power, we swap out, sending in Starscream, and it goes for a Thunderbolt instead, doing massive damage to our bird. So we're going to swap out and then send in Neon as he goes for another Thunderbolt. Swapping out yet again, we sent in Starscream again, because this time it does go for an Earth Power, and then a Thunderbolt KOs our bird when we fail to get the burn off. This time we send in Gyarados, lowering his attack, and go for an Aqua Tail, getting him way down into the red, and I probably should have just done this in the first place. After Giovanni uses another full restore, we can get it down into the red yet again. And at this point, it's just going to keep on healing up until Giovanni swaps out and sends in Mapam instead, and we go for an Aqua Tail, knocking it down to about a quarter. We pivot and then send in Tinker as he goes for a Karate Chop, which obviously can't hit us. And then after using a Bulk Up, we go for a Mystical Fire, getting it down into the red. Giovanni then goes for another Bulk Up, and a Discharge takes out the Mapam. With Snorking back out, we manage to outspeed it, going for a Mystical Fire, KOing it. When Tyrancy comes in, we need to swap, so we are and send in Neon. After Tyrancy misses a Stone Edge, it lands an Earthquake, doing some great damage to us, activating our Berry, and we can go for a Surf, not even doing a quarter. Knowing we're in a bad spot, we swap out, sending in Tinker, so that way we can avoid another Earthquake with our Levitate. A Power Gem does basically nothing as a Stone Edge comes in, doing some chip damage to us. Firing off a Mystical Fire, we do even less as another Stone Edge is going to knock us down just below half. After not remembering that Blissey's normal type, we get knocked down into the red, so we need to swap. And we do, sending in Gyarados, knowing it won't use Earthquake this turn. A Stone Edge is going to knock us down to just 35 HP. And going for an Aqua Tail, we can grab the Oko. His final Pokemon, Coffee King, comes in, so we're going to swap out, setting an Aura, assuming he's going to use Retaliate, which we can resist, but it still does over 50%. A Hammer Arm then absolutely decimates our Lucario! This is not going well. Sending Gyarados back in, we're going to intimidate it, and then going for a Night Slash, we can get him down super low. He goes for a Play Rough, and we manage to hold on with 8 HP. And one more Night Slash secures our win against Giovanni, and earns our place in the Pokemon League. To continue filling out our team, first we're going to go ahead and fuse up Scizor with Steelix, and even though stat-wise it's not the best, Bug Steel is always an amazing combination. Also, it looks kind of like Crash Man from Mega Man. And for our last spot on the team, we are going to go with the absolutely insanely bulky Vaporthorn. All right, before we go and face off against the Elite Four, let's take one final look at our team. Starting things off, we have Neon with Thunderbolt, Surf, Dragon Pulse, and Power Gem. Next up is Tinker with Discharge, Shadow Ball, Mystical Fire, and Power Gem. HXO1 with Dragon Claw, Meteor Mash, Zen Headbutt, and Dragon Dance. Gyarados with Aqua Tail, Ice Fang, Night Slash, and Dragon Dance. Kiddie Pool with Iron Head, Toxic, Power Whip, and Curse. And finally, Crash Man with Earthquake, Rock Slide, Bullet Punch, and Swords Dance. Our first Elite Four challenge is going to be up against Lorelei and her water Pokemon. She starts off by sending in Apollyon, and we're going to send in Neon. My plan here is to hopefully outspeed an Oko a lot of her Pokemon, and with Apollyon, we don't manage to outspeed it, but we do get the Oko. When Scartops comes in, a Waterfall is going to activate our Berry, and unfortunately it flinches us as an Earthquake fires off, destroying my hopes and dreams. We then send in Kiddie Pool because honestly I don't know what to do. But with Iron Barbs, we can always make sure to get in a little bit of chip damage against this thing. And after just 2 Power Whips, we can grab the KO. Next out is going to come Pikachu, which is an absolute nightmare. I purposefully go for an Iron Head, knowing it's not going to do a lot of damage, and then try to set up a Toxic, but we fail. Eventually, we do connect with the Toxic. This thing is just going to start shoving off random Shadow Balls and Destiny Bonds as we continue to just use Curse and let the Toxic eventually build up and do its thing. Lorelei is then going to run through both of her full restores on this thing, and we're just going to keep on toxing it until eventually it will succumb to the poison and go down safely. When her Milotina comes in, It goes for a Hydro Pump, doing some decent damage, and we can fire back, getting an Oko on an empowered Power Whip. Her final Pokemon, Gyaraku, comes in, and after we break its disguise, an Aqua Tail doesn't do a whole heck of a lot of damage to us. And now that we're through its disguise, one Curse boosted Power Whip absolutely annihilates this thing. And we're moving on to Bruno. For our next challenge is going to be Bruno and his Rock Hard Boys. He starts off by sending in a Tyrannoflame, and we're going to send in Gyarados. The play here is going to be pretty similar to what I wanted to do against Lorelei. We're just going to stack up and we're going to sweep. So after going for a couple of Dragon Dances, we can eventually connect with an Aqua Tail, grabbing the Oko. When Maraperia comes in, the same thing happens here. Bye-bye. When Aerodon comes in, we can Oko it as well. And now that Kingron's in, I know this thing has Metal Burst, so we need to swap. So I do, sending in Kiddie Pool. A Crab Hammer does effectively nothing to us, and we broke its sturdy with our Iron Barbs. Now that it doesn't have its sturdy, we can go for a Power Whip, grabbing the Oko. Next up is Armazor, and after we get flinched twice, Bruno heals up for some reason, and we can fire off a Power Whip, getting him down below half. Bruno's then going to heal up, and after a couple of more attacks, we can take down this Armazor. When Kraidlove comes in, it goes for a Stone Edge and misses, so we fire back with a Toxic. It does some chip damage with Stone Edge, but one Iron Head takes it out. And we defeat Bruno, and we're moving on to Agatha and her Poison Pokemon, which is basically what she is anyways. She starts off by sending in Clinkfish, and this thing doesn't have any directly attacking moves. All it can do is set up spikes. So my plan here with Ajax 01 is to just set up as many Dragon Dances as I can before she switches out. So after setting up 3, we go for a Zen Headbutt, knocking it down to its sash, and now I know that Agatha's going to heal up using her first potion, and then we take the Clinkfish out. Now, the rest of her team should not pose any problem as Haunchsing goes down. And with the exception of the fact that I missed against Clefairy on the first turn, every single one of Agatha's Pokemon go down in just one shot to this absolute monster of a Pokemon. Arnix only manages to hold on once because of Protect. But we're moving on to Lance. Who in modern mode has become the master of the skies? Team Sky Admin Lance at your service. He starts it by sending in a Togaflame, and we send in Crashman. Togaflame goes for an Aura Sphere, doing some decent damage to us as we then set up a Swords Dance. An Air Slash is then going to knock us down to about half, but fortunately we don't get flinched and we can KO it with one Rock Slide. When Dark Knight comes in, it goes for a Fire Blast. I did not know that this thing had Fire Blast. I should know this thing has Fire Blast. In kind of a weird spot, I'm going to send Gyarados in and go for a few Dragon Dances to power myself up. And then after that, we managed to Oko the Dark Knight, the Septidactyl. When his Snorkor comes in, we get it down to about 2/3, and lucky for me, the AI doesn't realize it has Poison Heal, so after it poisons itself, he just uses his second full restore, so then we can KO it. When Volcageock comes in, one Ice Fang is going to take care of it as well, and his final Pokemon, Agent Menace, comes in. And now that we're burnt, we don't do nearly enough damage to it. And after Lance uses his second full restore, we do about 50% with an Aqua Tail as our berry gets activated. Now I'm a little scared, so we're going to swap out and then send in Tinker. And Ironhead does some decent damage to us, but we outspeed, going for a Mystical Fire, picking up the KO, defeating Lance. As we enter the Champion's Chamber, I can see that Brando has constructed some sort of machine. And after analyzing its structure for a few moments, I realize that Rando's deceased stun limb is laying on a table with electrodes on his head that are connected to this machine. The skylight's open, and there's a lightning rod, and there is one heck of a storm going on. Rando is looking to revive his fallen friend that I so erroneously felled on our first battle after our starters. Tears in his eyes, he screams for me to throw the switch. I place my hand on Rando's shoulder. Rando, I am so sorry, but this isn't going to work. It just won't. We can't bring him back. I would do anything. I've lost too. I don't know how far into the Pokemon battle we are because this is way longer than normal. I'm gonna assume Chandelvile's in. Going for a Night Slash, we just barely don't grab the Oko as a Fire Blast comes in, activating our berry. Rando's then gonna use another full restore, and now with no berry, we can Oko the Chandelvile. When Tortor Neon comes in, a Night Slash is gonna do about 2/3 as the Scald comes in, fortunately not burning us as Rando heals up. Then with 2 more Night Slashes, we can take it down. When Luxius comes in, I wonder why he just didn't use the power of Luxius instead of building his own machine, but that's neither here nor there, and my Gyarados goes down to a Thunderbolt. Sending in Kiddie Pool, we are in kind of a rough spot here. Going for a Power Whip, Rando heals back up. As an Extreme Speed, does some chip damage to us, and then on the following turn, we set up the Toxic. Going for another Extreme Speed between the Iron Barbs and its Life Orb. It's now down into the red, and the Toxic can take it. Hax Menace comes in, and I'm going to go for another Toxic, but an Earthquake comes in, KOing Kiddie Pool, which means we are down to just HX01. It sets up a Dragon Dance, so do I. Going for an Earthquake, this thing knocks us down to just 40 HP, and a single Dragon Claw KOs it, and we are up against Rando's final Pokemon, where a Meteor Mash can Oko Renuvion, and we defeat Rando, becoming the Pokemon League champion. I then notice the Shallow Breaths from the Stun Limb. Rando, you do know you can take your Pokemon to a Pokemon Center to heal them, right? There's nothing wrong with him. Relieved, Rando bursts into tears. We embrace. We are best friends. Why aren't you subscribed to my channel? This is how I beat a Steel-only Pokemon Infinite Fusion Hardcore Nuzlocke, and you aren't subscribed. You heard our story. You've heard the tales. Now hit the button, leave a comment, hit the thumb. I love you all. Goodbye.